Welcome to another episode of Give It a Nudge. Today we have a good friend of mine, Neelan, on the show. I've been wanting to get him on the show for ages, so super excited to finally have him here and give what I feel is a slightly unique approach to what he does. So welcome, Neelan.
Thank you.
Why don't you, for the audience, just give a quick summary of what you do in your business?
The dreaded question.
Oh, look at that. Oh.
What I do. I was actually, before I came here, I said I hope Stephen asked me about what I do because...
Well, I don't want to describe it wrong, so I always get everyone to describe themselves. Yeah. I learned that early on in the podcast.
Yeah. So can I maybe, because we do a lot of things.
You do?
So instead of maybe answering what I do, can I maybe answer what we're passionate about at Bridge Private Wealth?
100%.
Yeah. So...
it's a much better answer, actually.
So I think if I sort of create a bit of a story here, it's like what we believe is that when a client walks in the door, they've got a bunch of cash, bunch of assets, they're working, kids, etc., things that they want to achieve, and so what we're really passionate about is making sure that when they leave the office or when we speak to them, that they're worrying about their finances just a little bit less than when they came in.
I like that.
And so it's really about, over a period of time, removing all the concern from them and letting us take on that responsibility so that they can go out and just live an amazing life. And whatever amazing is to them is what we're trying to promote for them. But our job is to try and remove that worry. And just before I came here, I was sitting with a client, and you could tell, and it's a new client, so we haven't engaged with them, but I was just talking about collaborating, about making decisions with them as with them as the couple and the family, and us as the advisory firm. We're collaborating with you to take that responsibility from you, and so that you can go out and do these things. And you could just see in their face the just like, oh, that would be nice, because I don't...
Sense of relief?
Sense of relief. I don't have to think about all of this by myself, and I don't have to take on all this responsibility.
Yep.
And I don't want to get it wrong. So, yeah.
Do you know what I like about the way you know what I liked about that when you said live what they consider to be an amazing life? And I think that's the fact that you recognize that everyone's version of amazing life is different. For some people, it may be traveling the world. For others, it may be working 100-hour weeks and not worrying about their finances. Like, it's very, very different. And I think people have a generalistic view, very much like people have a generalistic view of what work-life balance looks like. They have a generalistic view of what success looks like. And success is totally different for every single person. And living the life they want is totally different. Like, for some, it's not working at all. For some, it's working all the time. For some, it's working half-half. And I love the fact that you recognize that.
Oh, it's such a important component, like, to have somebody... A lot of clients will ask us, am I doing the right thing? Or
I'll bet they do.
want some validation around that. But really, what's important is, are you doing the things that you want to do, and do you feel comfortable about that? And if you can get to that type of life, and it doesn't matter, like you said, if you're working 100 hours a week, or you're actually just continuing to do the things that you do, and you're actually spending way less than you could, but you're really happy with how you're living.
Yep.
Man, perfect.
Absolutely.
Do that. You don't need to open up the screen and try and say, oh, that person's doing this, let me take a bit. You can do that if you want, but you don't have to. If your life represents amazingness, then keep doing that, as long as you don't have the financial concern and worry. Well, that's brilliant.
Is that a word, amazingness?
It's not a word, but...
I think I like it.
I just made it up.
I really like it. I'm going to use that. So just for the audience who don't necessarily fully get what you do, and I'm not going to ask you to describe what you do, but essentially, your firm advises individuals, not companies, often sort of people who've had a relatively decent amount of success on their investments, their finances. You just help them manage their wealth to achieve whatever those goals and live, as you just said, their version of amazing life. Is that the best way to sort of coin it?
That's exactly what it is.
I should have answered that question myself at the beginning. And how long have you been going now?
So the business has been around since 2008.
Yep.
So Bridge Private Wealth has been around 2008. I joined a bit later, but I'm a partner there with my team. but it's been around for a while now.
Well, we've known each other for a while. I can't even remember where I met you, actually, or when I met you, but it was a while ago. And what did you do prior? I actually don't think I know this.
It's sad to say, but I've actually pretty much only been in financial services, and
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, yeah.
That's your amazingness.
I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran now.
But were you was it more of a corporate career before that?
Corporate career, working with the big institutions,
Yep.
At the banks, and just learning the ropes of probably more sales than being an advisor.
That's financial services.
That's financial services. And then moved on from there. The reason why I moved on,
And that was my next question. What made you make that switch?
Yeah, and this is back at Commonwealth Bank when I was working. It was great. I was having a time of it. You have the great week Friday night drinking sessions and
Beautiful office.
find your balance, and you get your referrals, you see your clients, you've got Commonwealth Bank in your head, everyone believes you. Okay. And so that was my life. But I noticed everyone around me in the bank that had been there for many, many years was like either suffering from, some ailment of some sort, depression, like obesity, gout, sadness. Like it was just quite a depressive environment. And this doesn't exist in all parts of the bank, but it just where I was, like around me was like, oh, this doesn't look
great.
I'm not sure if I want to be here.
It's fascinating that you
20,
spot
30
that, because you often, like wood for the trees, right, scenario, you don't think of yourself, when you see people around you like that, you don't necessarily ever envisage you'll be like that, but you did.
Yeah. I think I'm always extrapolating. It's part of my planning brain.
Yeah.
Like I'm always extrapolating. Like, okay, if I keep doing this for the next 10 years, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Right? If we, I've stopped drinking now. So if I stop drinking today and I keep doing that, what does this mean? Well, sharper mind, probably better with my money, better with finances, better decision making,
better with your money,
etc. So I'm always extrapolating, and I think I've always done that from a young age, and that's helped me just end up making better decisions.
Yeah.
I haven't made all the best decisions, but yeah.
Oh, you've got to make bad ones to be able to make better ones, right?
Yeah.
I heard someone say that to me once.
That's great.
It's a great coin. Let's use that more too. Coming out with all of them tonight. That and amazingness. We could just shut this episode down now. So I guess you touched on something then. You're looking at this corporate life, you're seeing these people with
Problems.
problems. Let's just not get into it too much.
Yeah.
So then you decide to go into what's an entrepreneurial career, which arguably most people would consider probably worse for your health, because you're working long hours, you've got the stress, you haven't got the regular income, How did you find the transition, and did you actively go out to look for the role that you're in now? Was that a conscious decision, or was that more a bit of a serendipity that you started opening your mind to things?
More ignorance, really. Neelan thinking that, you know what, you're a good advisor at the bank. That means you can be a good business owner, and you can be a good this and that. And I quickly learnt that, wow, I've got a lot to learn. And so it was ignorance initially, and just me believing in myself.
Yep. You need that blind belief in yourself.
Blind belief?
You do. You have to have it.
Look, unfortunately, what was actually going to happen, I got married in 2011, and my wife and I were supposed to go to London to live there for a year, and I was going to quit financial planning, actually.
Right.
And just go and look at business opportunities, whatever they were.
In London, with no contacts.
With no contacts.
Love it.
And just try and work it out.
Why not? It's such a friendly place.
Yeah.
Being from London, I can say that, right?
And I don't know anything about it. So I just assumed it was a friendly place. So, and so unfortunately, 4 days after I got married, my wife's mother was diagnosed with a brain cancer, and that derailed our plans to go and live in the UK.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and so that meant I had quit my job without any planning, thinking that I'm going to the UK, start a whole, sort of adventure.
Yeah.
And then I basically decided to take a year or two off and do a bit more study and learning and reading and meditating and looking at plants and hugging trees, all that sort of stuff. I did that for a couple of years, and my wife said to me, "Are you ever going to start making money?" And I said, I will start making money shortly.
Yeah. Any minute now. Any minute
now. And then so I just went back into what I knew and felt confident about, and started that journey into financial advice and planning.
Interesting. Because you're a big health buff, because we've talked
Yeah.
a lot about, we share a lot of interest in that respect. I'm glad to hear the no drinking is still going so well. I know so many people who are not doing it this year. Do you know Miles as well? He's the guy with the suit business, Miles Walton. So he gave up for 4 months. He's now 4.5 years in.
Wow.
And he just said to me, he goes, it's just, I feel like I'm so far ahead of everybody else. I don't want to go back to not being, but I do kind of, but I don't. He goes, but it's just, the superpower he feels he has is just being so sharp and so clear, and which I guess is what you're experiencing. 4.5 years is a long time.
It's a long time, yeah. And huge amount of time. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it for 4.5 years.
It's a long time.
I'm umming and ahhing, like it's definitely 10 months for this year.
Yep.
And then when silly season is upon us later in the year, I'm thinking
just in time for my birthday.
Yeah. But look, I am umming and ahhing of quitting completely, because I am seeing amazing benefits just around my memory, my clarity, being better for clients, being better there for my kids.
Yeah.
My wife probably, I'm not sure, she would, she may say yes or no.
Let's get her on the show next week.
Yeah. But yeah, no, absolutely phenomenal. And I've taken up boxing again, so it's a martial art that I've always been interested in.
Yep.
So hopefully, look, to be honest with you, what's keeping me not drinking
is the training.
Is the training, and the fact that I'm going to compete like later in the year.
Yeah.
Because you can't do boxing and be drinking. They're just two things that don't go together. So that's the motivation and the reasoning, and so hopefully that continues.
That's good. I think it's good.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your business and where you've got to. Let's take an example of what you do, right? So let's say I decide to come to you, my wife and I go, you know what, we're going to go and meet Neelan. Or no, we've met Neelan and we've decided we like Neelan. And we're going to run with you, we're going to sign up. When I come in that first time, after we've agreed to already sort of sign up with your firm, what happens? What's the process? How does it work?
Yeah.
I know it would be different for each, but give me a sort of high level overview.
Yeah. So, but before we get to there, Steve, I think it's worth just talking about what should happen before you start working with Bridge.
This is your planning brain again.
Yeah.
Go on, then. Please, absolutely.
Yeah, because I think it's super important. Because with what I find in my experience, and this has been now 15 years, and it is getting reinforced each year. If I can sit down with a client and in that first session or first couple of sessions really create clarity of outcomes, then magic happens. Okay. Clarity of outcomes about their life, their what they want to achieve by way of milestones for their children, for themselves, for the collective, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? If we can get that down, and that's not just financial outcomes, that's like life outcomes, that's health outcomes. It could be anything. If we can just get that all down and be clear about that's what you want to achieve, or that's what you want to do, or that's what we're working towards.
It's very holistic, like it's everything.
Yeah, because when you write it down and then people are in a room and you're saying, well, I'm committed to that, right? Suddenly, it's like it's all these, the forces just start to work towards, okay, well, how does that happen? How do we achieve that?
Yeah.
How do we do that? Now, they're thinking about how to do that. I'm thinking about how to make it happen from a financial planning standpoint.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where the start is. That's where the spark is. It's where you turn on the engine and get moving. Without that, what you're doing is sailing without like a sail, basically. You're just moving.
Yep.
And you may hit the target, you may not. And so for me, that is absolutely crucial as a starting point. It's crucial from the point of view that if we don't know where you're going, we can't actually assist you correctly.
True. Absolutely.
We can't allocate your capital effectively. We can't give you the right advice about the milestones and what you should do at particular points. So we've got to get that part right. So once you've done that, then and we've got, say, agreement on that, the rest is, like, honestly, it just becomes so easy.
So do you do that before you sign people up? 'Cause
Absolutely.
what you just described is what I would imagine would happen once I'd said, yes, we're in with you. You do that before with no commitment.
Yeah, no commitment. So because for us, it's working. Obviously, the first initial meeting is working out whether we can work together.
Yep.
But to do that, I've got to elicit what's important to you. I've got to understand that. because only then can I then sit down and work out whether I've got a solution for you,
Yes.
or solutions for you, and or can we provide those solutions, and or who else should we bring into this particular pool to help you move towards those outcomes. So that's something that's complementary. Look, I think it's probably the most valuable part of
And you're giving
planning.
it for free.
You're giving it for free. So you get that health check, you get that that clarity session. I call it, it's more of a discovery. I really like to call it a clarity session. And then once you've done that, it's like, oh, wow, now the opportunities really open up. And we've just seen from that meeting, you have that meeting, people get committed. And then even before we've started the work, it's like, oh, hey, Neelan, this happened. I've actually been received this huge bonus, or I've got this promotion, or this big opportunity's come my way.
Yeah.
Because something is committed in that meeting, and then suddenly
There's almost a life coaching element to it.
look, I don't want to. Life coaching, counseling. There's parts of it where I've got to take off my financial planning hat, put on a different hat. Sometimes I've got to actually say that, hey, listen, I'm going to take off my financial planning hat, because the way they view me is as their financial advisor. So. And just as an example, the other day, we had a client that was having trouble with their children and leaving a large legacy, and it was more personal advice, but it was about, look, you really need to write maybe a letter to each of your children to try and get them to understand why family is so important. Because as a father, we're always saying the same thing to our kids, and they sort of just, it goes in one ear, comes out the other. But if you give it in a different medium, can actually have a different effect.
Yeah.
And so, like, sometimes we're providing guidance, advice like that. Now, people might say, well, who the hell are you, Neelan, to provide that advice and guidance? But from my standpoint, we're dealing with that sort of issue or problem with clients across various life stages, and we're dealing with hundreds of those things.
Yeah.
So it's natural that we're trying to solve some of those problems or give ideas.
And it's experience.
Problems.
I mean, it's like anything. If you're seeing something time after time after time and lots of different scenarios, that's who you want to give advice on that.
Absolutely.
I mean, if it's your first day on the job, maybe not so much, but you're not that. It's interesting. What's the wildest thing anyone's ever said to you in one of those discovery meetings? Has anyone just gone and come out with something you just went, wow, never saw that coming?
There was one guy that said he wanted to buy an island.
That's cool. Did he?
No, we didn't actually engage. He's a bit of a I don't know. I don't want to say anything, but yeah, that was one of the other one of our favorite clients in the office. She wants to own a bee farm.
A bee farm.
A bee farm. And because she believes that bees are so important to the.
They are. We all know this now.
Yeah. So for that reason, and so we've actually still working towards that.
I'm going to give you a fact that she might like. I don't know where she works, but I have found out just 2 days ago that Australia Square, that building, on the top of that building, there is a 60,000 bee farm.
Oh, wow.
On top of that building, all the way, I don't know what it is, 35 levels.
High altitude bees.
High altitude. Do you think they're fitter when they come down lower? Yeah. And the tenants can go up and harvest that honey once a month as a thing.
Yes.
I just literally found that out.
That's amazing.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
I was going to go, and I got caught in a meeting, which was really annoying. I'm going to try and go next month.
Do you go with a mask?
I don't know. I didn't get to go. I mean, I hope so. Yeah. Surely. Yeah. And David Beckham. I don't know if you watched his documentary. He was bee farming. It's everywhere. Yeah. If you watch that documentary,
I think there's a bit of a movement, which is good. I think
there is.
Yeah. Yeah. And most likely in 10 years we'll have an oversupply of bees.
Too many. There'll be a pest, right? Yeah.
We'll have to extend that.
Yeah. We're as humans, we're really good at that, managing those scenarios.
It's just the pendulum swinging from one side to the other.
Fantastic. Yeah. And so talk to me, do you have, this might be a thing with planners, right? I'll give you an analogy. You look at any builder, their house is half done. How are your finances? How are your planning? Is it the same scenario? And I know with recruiters, they're generally really poor at recruiting for themselves. So it's a similar thing. Does that happen, or is that just?
It happens. And look, I hate administration.
I think most people do.
I hate people. No, look, there's some people out there that are just amazing at implementing and executing, right? I'm a big picture thinker. I like big ideas. I like to think about strategy, things of that nature. But when you say, hey, Neelan, go and set up that account, right? Right?
Like who?
Huh? What? So in my household, my wife Shoma and myself, she would manage the living expenses. I would manage the game plan, the strategy. We do that for a couple of reasons. One, I want her to be involved in the finances.
Yep.
Because I do take risk with my own capital, and I need her to understand what we're doing. And then on the other side, I wanted to be involved because I think I've come from a family where my mother was, doesn't know how to pay the bills, or she can, but she just hasn't done it. And so I think it's just important to share the responsibility of finance, no matter what the case is.
And that's not uncommon with that previous generation, I think. I mean, it's a generational thing.
But it still happens to this day.
I have no doubt.
It still happens. One person, I don't, because it's like an aversion. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, no, it's not about dealing with it. It's just about being involved and knowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so, I had a fight with my wife about finances this morning.
Awesome. So, I think everybody has those way too much.
Yeah.
But that's your job, is to take that worry away just a little bit so that there's less argument.
Bit by bit,
Life coaching.
Yeah.
So talk to me about being a business owner. You're great on this planning. As you said, you walked into business ownership with this blind optimism, which is awesome because, like I said, you need that. What's been the biggest lesson for you so far? Because you've been doing it for a while now.
Biggest lesson? Wow.
Or if you like, the hardest thing, the thing that probably caught you off guard the most, surprised you the most. And you went, I had never considered anything like that before.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've just had smooth sailing, I don't know.
No, look, the first 4 or 5 years of my business life were horrific. So again,
oh wow, okay,
yeah, horrific. I wouldn't say horrific. It was okay, but it was like I didn't really make any money at all for the first few years. Right.
But that's quite normal.
And that's quite normal. But it felt it was quite a big hit to the ego and just a big hit to myself, just because I'd come from being a successful advisor in an institution, and then I'd gone out into the big bad world, and it was like, this isn't really working.
Yeah.
Right. And what would keep me in the game was like something miraculous would happen with a client where I'd change their life, or something important, whether it would be financial or life or whatever it was. And for some reason I'd be in bed going, okay, I'll stay here for another 6 months,
It's almost like golf.
Yeah.
Right? Ridiculous sport. But if you hit one good shot, so I'm told, I gave up golf a long time ago when I had children, then you carry on going. I didn't, but a lot, I was really bad, but a lot of people do. I guess it's a similar thing. I can relate to that actually. We've had some pretty rough times in the last few years, but then you have one great day and you're just like, oh, that was so good.
It's amazing. And that's what's kept me in. And obviously as time's passed and things have gotten really well, I'd say, we're really happy in where things are. But look, the biggest lesson for me is I wrote down some goals at the start of the last decade, so 10 years ago.
Yep.
And I'd written them down, and had a little bit of a vision board and bits and pieces and all that sort of jazz.
Yep.
And funnily enough, right, by year 6 or 7, I was nowhere near them, right? But by year 10, I'd achieved a lot of them.
Well, that's a saying, isn't it? A lot of people have that saying. You overestimate what you can do in the early years, and you underestimate what you can do in a longer period of time.
And that's exactly what I say to clients as well.
I guess it's the same with finance. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So it was just more. I think luckily I've got a bit of grit in me.
Yeah.
And I've been able to persevere, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. At the same time, I would say, I have seen. I've been fortunate enough to come out on the other side, I feel, and things are getting easier and better, and it's probably the grey hairs as well. But there's a lot of businesses that we look at and say, maybe it's time to call it, right?
It's a really interesting point. I've always been of the belief that if you can keep going, you will get there. And there's a zillion stories like that, right? But they're the ones that are glamorized and that you hear about. What you don't hear about are the ones that don't. And I think that's a problem. I think sometimes people go too long because they have this impression from stories and videos and books and podcasts that no matter what, if you don't give up, you'll get there. And it's just not true.
Well, I think the what I see is not every business has the same potential as any other business.
Very true.
Some business can only go to this level. Some people can go to here. Some can go to the sky. But for whatever reason, there may be this sort of unrealistic belief that your business can do more than than what it can do.
Well, you kind of need that as well to start, don't you?
Of course.
So it's a really interesting balance.
It's a balance, but like I think there's a virtue in stopping something and restarting. It's like, look, one of the things that I've seen in my career when people who are employees become redundant from their employer, it ends up being the best thing that's ever happened to them.
Well, we've seen a lot of that. Like we saw a lot of that in COVID, and we saw a lot of that last year.
This is what I'm saying.
And there's actually it's still going on now.
But for a business owner, it's so much harder because you have to quit your own baby.
It's a real ego hit. I think the thing I've learned most about running businesses is your ego just gets smashed constantly.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to take that, and it's horrible. There's nothing good about that.
No, and that's why I understand. That's why they continue on for so much longer than they need to. But if you can potentially, and I'm not saying this is not for everyone, right?
Yeah.
But
everyone out there's just going to quit now because Neelan said so.
And maybe it's the best thing that ever happened to you.
Maybe.
Okay. I don't know, but I definitely see it. I feel like those unrealistic expectations can hurt you, and it's just about being. And even for me, like I know where my capability lies in my business, and I work towards that capability and try and fill the gaps. If I continuously try and work in the parts that I'm not really good at, well, what's going to happen?
I think that comes with experience and age. You become more comfortable in understanding what you're actually good at, and you need to double down on that.
Absolutely.
So tell me this: if you had. And not everyone will go to a financial planner for a lot of different reasons, right? So let's say there's a whole bunch of people in our audience who are not going to go to a financial planner. More for them. But if there are people out there like that, what's one piece of advice you could give to someone who wants to manage maybe it's an ego, who knows, but they want to manage their own finances. They don't want to trust anyone else.
Yeah, great.
What's the one thing you could say to them that would probably, the simplest thing they could do that will help them?
Yeah, okay. We call it getting financially organized.
Yeah.
Right? And what does that mean?
What does it mean?
So it's basically having your own balance sheet.
Yes.
Right? Knowing what your assets and liabilities are.
Yep.
Having that in a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Tracking that performance on a monthly, half-yearly, annual basis. Understanding how you're growing with that base. Understanding what you can do. So having a balance sheet. Having an income statement. Understanding what you're earning personally.
Spending.
And spending. Right? So those two things alone will give you the big picture view of your financial position.
Yeah.
Balance sheet, income statement.
How many people do you reckon do that?
Very few.
Very few.
Right? And even if they do it, they probably do it and then never look at it again.
Yeah. They don't do it monthly. I've been told you should run your finances like you run a business, essentially. You have to.
Absolutely. Think of your household budget or your household, personal household and finances as a little business.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then how would you operate? Like a lot of people operating a business or operating a division in a big corporate, what would you do? You'd run it at a profit. You'd work out how to do that. You'd find new ways to manage it, make it easier for you, more efficient.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. I think that's great advice.
So that's the starting. Like if you wanted to do it yourself, if you haven't done that and you're just doing stuff, then that's okay too, but it's probably better to start with that.
Yeah, and that's actually not an easy thing to do. It takes time.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, why, and a lot of people don't enjoy that.
Well,
I know I don't. I don't like anything to do with numbers. I hate Excel.
You're a creative.
I don't know. I don't know what I am, but I'm definitely not. I'm definitely not a numbers and an Excel guy. I can't stand it.
Yes.
It's my pet hate.
And let's just think about this from the point of view of like a business owner that's starting up, or a business owner that's running a business, or an executive, or an aspiring employee working to create a career for themselves. They're super busy, right? Spending so much time developing business or developing their career, right? Like a lot of their mental energy is going into that space. So if they've got the energy and also the inclination, fine, go ahead. Do it all yourself. Yeah. You might enjoy it. If you do, great, good on you, that's great. But what we find is a lot of people don't enjoy it.
Yep.
Right? And then go off and make these really big decisions without actually having done the groundwork.
Yeah.
And if you make really big decisions without having done the groundwork, you might get lucky and strike gold, or you might stray off course completely and then wake up 6 or 7 years later and go,
Bad call.
bad call. And
Yeah.
and so for us, we're just like, well, let's work together. Let's make sure we're heading in the right direction now, and not ending up, in Adelaide when we want to end up in Brisbane. As an example, that's the analogy.
You've just alienated people in all sorts of cities
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
That was a very brave call.
Yeah, we love Adelaide too.
Yeah, we'll definitely edit that out. No, it's a big call.
Yeah.
Neelan, thank you for coming on. It's fascinating to hear. I've always liked your approach to it, which is why I wanted you on the show. But it's really nice to sort of delve into it in a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
And I guess I've got one question before. Where is it for you here? You're a planner. You've got a planning. You've got this business. Like you said, you're happy with it. What's the next steps for you with that business?
Yeah. So my biggest focus now is just building an extremely capable team around me that I love capability around me, and I want to, because it helps me advance myself.
Yep.
Love working with smart people, love finding solutions with people, collaborating.
Yep.
So it's really, I want to grow through that avenue by working with more great people.
Yeah.
And so that's actually the goal, to find a way to find great people, add them into the business, find a way to grow the business through those people.
Yeah.
And so that's the next big step for us. It's looking for great talent and steadily, it's not about, I'm not trying to exponentially grow or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find amazing people. I think the growth comes along with amazing people.
It does when you're in a services business, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's all we're doing at the moment. There's 1,000 things that I could talk about in terms of we're adding a lot more rigor to our investment process. We're just trying to make every little bit of the process better. And just one thing, if I can share,
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that we're doing is that, we love to maybe sound smart, in front of clients to show our capability.
Yeah.
But the reality is clients just want to know that they can achieve what they've told us about. And so really, if we can do that for them, it's about really bringing that conversation down to as short as it possibly can be.
Laser focused,
with meaning, with intent. It doesn't need to have all the knowledge and back. That we already know that. They already know we know that. So it's just about bringing that expertise in a laser-focused fashion, and then making them. We just want them to have light bulb moments where they go, "Yeah, I feel really comfortable about my way forward, and I feel confident that we're going to achieve this, and I'm really happy that we've got Bridge Private Wealth by our side."
Yeah, cool, good answer. Like that.
Awesome.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you.
We're definitely starting to get guests back on from a couple of years ago. So give it a couple of years and we'll have you back.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for watching, everyone, today. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.